an energy healer, and we're going to talk today about the secrets of healing. So, as people come on, actually, you won't hear me saying this unless you're on replay, but you can still ask your questions. As as people come on, I'll mention again that you can ask questions if you want to. So, I want to know. Probably I've said it many times, but I'm very, very, very personally fascinated, not just fascinated. I feel like I'm on a quest for healing on all levels. Healing is as the Rebbe says, healing is the full embodiment of the soul. So it seems like there are a lot of things that traumas, limiting beliefs, whatever makes us unconscious, that keeps the soul from flowing and keeps health from happening and keeps that embodiment from happening. So in order to facilitate that, in order to allow for that, I think it's really, really imperative for all of us to be on this kind of search, to be on this quest for what works, what will completely connect the soul to the body, which means that we're completely connected to God, our purpose, being in this world, the superpowers that we have once we're done with this matrix and moving on to a new one. Anyway, so Rivkah, welcome, and I'll give it over to you. What are some of the first things that you want to say for everybody? Again,
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, that's exactly what you said, is that we're all on this journey here doing basically the same thing in different versions with different tools and different systems and different structures that we either need to restructure, break down, or reevaluate so that we can actually reach the ultimate same goal. And there's a lot of nuance and a lot of intricacies within those structures that make it extremely complicated and make people kind of knee-jerk say like, you don't know what I'm going through, or you can't understand this, but ultimately, and that may be true within the context of those specific scenarios, but ultimately we are all in the same situation together, showing up uniquely. With
when you
our
say
own
structures, you mean like the narratives and situations that people go through in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, any kind of structure. So that could be the narrative that people are going through in their lives. It could be the beliefs that they tell themselves about their lives. It could be the dynamics within their actual life, which means, you know, what they're going through, the actual structure of how their life looks, and everything else. Because how our lives look is a reflection of what's going on inside, and we are slowly or rapidly all coming to this realization about ourselves individually and collectively, about like, hey, wait a second, like there's more to life than just, you know, grabbing a coffee and posting a cute pic on the gram. Like there's more to it, and what is that, and where am I going to find that meaning, and how am I going to make that work for me in the way that's meaningful to me, in the way that speaks to me. And so
If I heard you correctly, you're saying that regardless of the picture of any individual person, this is a universal process that you're speaking to. Is that the
yeah,
point?
correct. This is a part of our lives that we're all going through our own processes. We're all going through our own systems or our own things. Let's say, for example, one person might be going through the immense amount of grief around a loss or around something that they didn't receive or didn't get or wanted, but they couldn't have. And another person might be going through major life changes and, you know, moving to another country. And even through those experiences and through those things, we're all still one. We're all still brothers, right? We are all still collectively in this. It's just that we might be going through different parts of things or in different ways. And we kind of lose sight of being able to show up and see each other because we're so kind of connected to the part of ourselves that's inside the inside process. Because what happens is when you walk away from generations of trauma, I watched a talk that Ani did a few days ago, and she was talking about how like we've all been in this past experience of massive trauma, and now we're in Geula, right? So if you think about it like that, then you think about we're all walking away from trauma, and the first step of healing from trauma is looking inward, right? And is like being in the deep process of being inside of yourself, kind of like shutting out the world. But what's after that, right? And we had COVID. We all had time to process. We all have time to go through these deep parts of ourselves. We know ourselves, at least a lot of us do. And then after that, what's next? And that's what next is so important to be looking at right now, I think. And especially it's important for me, but I know it's important for a lot of people, a lot of my clients who are going through this process as well.
Okay, so I want to go into that what's next in a minute, but do you think we're talking about secrets of healing. Do you think it's a foundational secret to understand that this is a universal process? Because I see that in myself and my students and clients for many, many years, that one of the biggest things that keeps us from breaking through in any area, whether it's health, empowerment, relationships, anything, peace of mind, it's a feeling that there's something deeply wrong with me. Like I'm not that I have a problem in my life, but that I am fatally flawed. And that's why, like it's not going to work just because it's me. Yeah. And I feel like that, I keep telling people and myself, I guess I've learned to intuitively know this by now, but that these challenges that we have, they're part of the reason that we're here. We're given them. We didn't create them. Yeah. Now the question is,
in some cases we did create them, right?
We created them based on other predispositions, like anything that happened. It's a big trick to deal with time. It's not a big trick, but it's tricky to deal with time because there's a difference between before the fact and after the fact, right? So before the fact, we have to look at everything as if we have free choice. But the instant something has happened, we have to know that it was meant to be. And it really was. And sometimes that means, that we have to step up in a different way. We have to learn a lesson. We have to make amends. We have to, create boundaries, whatever it is. But I think it's crucially important to understand that I'm just speaking into what you said. I think this is a powerful, powerful, necessary foundation for all real growth in life, to understand that everything about our lives is being custom created for us in the moment for our highest transformational purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that I think that a lot of the time we can get so easily blindsided by, oh no, I'm going through this. Why is this happening to me? Or things kind of just happening. Nothing's by accident. And if nothing stubbing your toe isn't by accident. I happen to stub my toe a lot, and I'm quite clumsy. And if everyone knows me, they know that I'll always be tripping over something, and that's happening for a reason, right? It's something, a part of me that's saying, hey, look at this, look at this. I don't necessarily know what it is in the moment, but I can always look deeper. And that thing is that I think people are stuck on this, oh, it's happening to me. And then that's the victim role that we don't really want to take, because we're totally out of our power when we're in victim role, in victim mode. Because being in the role of victim is not, it's not an emotion, it's a state of being. Yeah. And when we're in a state of being, that's all encompassing to all the aspects of our life. So if you're in a state of being around victimhood, then that's going to show up in multiple areas in your life. And so that's something that's super significant when I look at that. And I even for myself, specifically for myself, first and foremost, because at the end of the day, you can be stuck in that process of being in a victim mode, or I don't want to say process. You can be stuck in that cycle or loop of being in victim mode, and then ultimately be running in the same circles over and over again, but you're not really reaching the goal.
Right. Yeah, I think
that's a huge blockage.
Yes, it is. It's a huge part of the reason why people's lives keep repeating, and why we try so hard and we end up sometimes back where we were before.
Yeah. What was that line you just said about that belief, that you said that you feel over and over again? Not worthy?
Did I say that?
No, you didn't say not worthy. You said something that was similar.
Oh, fatally flawed.
Oh, fatally flawed. Exactly. So I wanted to touch upon that, is that we all, the belief system of being fatally flawed is actually, on one side of the coin, it's true, right? Because we all are flawed. But then on the other end of the side of the coin, it's completely, it's not true. It's completely, it's a fallacy. And it is actually a belief system that can block us from reaching our goal. It's literally like this humongous boulder in the middle of the road, and you're like, yeah, well, this is just here, this is that, so what? So you're not going to continue with your life because of that. No, of course not. It might take a longer time to figure out like, hey, I really got to get this out of the way, or I move around it, or whatever it is. But that is a structural belief system that absolutely can be broken down. Anything that has held any kind of mass can be broken down.
So
And
talk a little bit about how it works, like whatever order you want to take this in, like what is the kind of healing that you do? How does it work? Why does it work? What have you seen? Or anything else you want to say around that? And by the way, you guys who are listening, feel free to ask questions. We'll see where our time takes us, but really good
yeah, I'm
to
all
see
about the
where you
questions.
are. Yeah.
So the base that I started with is called emotion code and body code. And Shifra, you know a lot about it because you're also certified, right?
I'm not
In
certified, but
you're not certified, but you
I use
practice.
it. Yeah.
You use it for yourself, right? So yeah, it's an incredible modality. And the cool thing about it is that it is so open and ready for anyone to do, like to just simply learn how to muscle test and to be able to release from yourself. Like you could buy the book and that's it. You don't even need to buy the book. You could just learn how to muscle test and find the emotions and clear them away as long as you know how to do it. And so that is my base. And I also became certified in EFT tapping, which I use within sessions, but not enough. I'm actually launching a new program that I'll talk about maybe a little later, that I'll be using it more in, and I'm very excited about it. But for the most part, that is the base that I'm using, and I'm always pulling in different things from different areas to kind of enhance it and to get to the deepest core problem or issue, with my clients, with myself, around whatever it is that's blocking the client. And you know, I've been doing this for, I would say, 2.5-ish years, certified in the emotion code, and then I got certified in the body code next. And I've seen a lot of different kinds of clients in my practice, different versions of how people show up and how people want to show up, and it either could be with regard to how people look at healing, right? How they perceive healing, what they want from the healing, and what their experience is with the practitioner or with the session or with the triggers that come up within the sessions. And these are all different really important parts that I want to talk about, because when we talk about healing, sometimes you'll hear from a lot of time people, especially in the world who've been doing healing or who've been wanting to pursue healing. People hear like, oh, I heard this person worked with this practitioner who, she cleared up her eczema in one session. It was amazing, right? And then we hear these things and we're like, whoa, what's going on? Like I need that. I'll take a little healing in my life. And that's actually kind of how I got started in this, when I heard of a miracle story, and they actually are miracles, from God given to us through this beautiful modality. And these modalities, this is not the only modality that's effective, but I'm like, wow, I want some of that. I would like some healing. Like I want like a miraculous story, a miraculous healing story. I want an ace, right? I want a miracle. And so we always ask for these miracles in our lives, and then you go into the session. A lot of clients come into the session and they're like, okay, let's do this. I'm ready. Okay, so here's my problem. These are my issues, and let's knock them out of the park, right? And then on the healer end, you gotta pace yourself. Firstly, you can only work on one issue at a time, and then you have to look at like what is the client coming to you with, and why do they want to heal this, and what parts of them are looking to heal this too, because sometimes a part of ourselves that want to heal something want to put it lightly, a quick fix. And unfortunately that doesn't work ever. It never usually works. And I know from my own personal experience of wanting a quick fix that it does not work. You could have a rash, you could have anger management issues, you could have depression, you could have back pain. Quick fixes never work. Doesn't make a difference what it is. And that's I think the biggest misconception about these amazing miracle stories that we do hear, with regard to healing, that these things can just vanish without actually putting in that effort, the personal effort. And I see the difference between the clients who come to me and they want me to solve the problem versus the clients who come to me and who are really looking to look at the process and feel it and breathe it and be in it and go deep. And the
I mean,
only difference between those clients is resistance.
I think I share this paradigm with you. I do share it for the most part. I mean, I think we're here for spiritual journey, and we're not just here to, yeah, I mean, if we weren't supposed to have resistance, like weights, you know, if we weren't supposed to have challenges, they wouldn't be created. They're here to bring something out. But at the same time, I have seen, like when I've seen Dr. Brad, you know, do a presentation or whatever, even with myself, I can't think offhand, but yeah, I've done sessions or have had sessions done for me that did shift things right away. I'm sure you
Yeah,
must
I've
have
had that
experienced
too.
that as
I've had
well.
that too.
So
I've
are you
had that
just
too.
saying
And
that in the bigger issues most of the time, or that we can't count on it? Like what would you say about that?
so the issues that we come to a healer with, or even we'll look at ourselves and they clear up right away, those are supposed to be cleared up right away for whatever reason. It could be that the issue wasn't present for a long time. And it could be, and that's why it's just the rapid healing was just a few blocks and that's it. And it could be that that this actual issue was going to be, and the rectification of this issue or the clarity of this issue was used as a vehicle to create a wow experience for the client so that they can be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm doing this. Like, I'm committed. This is my work. I need to do this because we're all in the time of Geula. And again, we're all even in the same boat collectively, but also in a different ways, in different processes. Everything speaks to us differently. So with one person, like cranial sacral therapy might really speak to them, while somebody else is like, it's not really for me. And, you know, acupuncture might be the right thing for that person. So everyone has other things that work for them. And I can give you an example of a client that I worked with who she had a bariatric surgery and she was struggling with like massive inflammation from her lower half down, maybe about a year or so after her surgery. And, you know, I was working on her and I was like, okay, you know, like, what am I going to do? Like her inflammation. And we were working on other areas of her life too. And the next week she calls me up for her next session and she tells me that her inflammation went down like pretty much all the way. And her doctor was completely shocked and in awe of the fact that she had experienced. He's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I think that is a great example of something that, like, you know, she had that for already a year, that inflammation. That was a one-time session, right? But then there are other issues that are also coupled with that part of us that need to look deeper and to need to get to know ourselves. And that is one of the deeper parts of healing, is not only clearing the problem and getting the wow factor of like, oh, I just did a session and it was so amazing and all my problems are gone and I'm like, I'm a new person, I'm reborn. Like, that's super new age and super not aligned. What it is we go into these things, into these healing journeys to get to know ourselves on a deeper level. And a lot of the time we don't. And we have so many distractions in our lives on a daily basis that we like, of course we don't know ourselves in the way that we want to, or we haven't. And now we can like really, and I think COVID was one of the bigger ways for people to like look at themselves. But then even afterwards, people are like, okay, what's next? Come on. And people are learning to know themselves, and everyone's going to be on different parts of the journey, right? Some people are going to be a little bit more advanced and some people are going to be a little bit farther behind, but we're all taking the same journey. We're all in the same boat.
So I hear you. Julie just said it's coming. It will come back if you don't get to the root. That might be true.
Correct. That is true.
But I hear that you're seeing this. It's all over what you're saying. That for you, healing is this spiritual journey. It's not just helping people out with something or helping yourself out with something, which now explains why. I know you've told me in the past that you don't want to do one-time sessions with people. You want to have an ongoing process, and I guess it's because you want to facilitate that real transformation.
Yeah, I do sometimes do one-off sessions with clients, but for the most part, people who come to me, they are looking to work with people, work on things on a long-term basis on a deeper level. And I do have clients who like call me up and they say, hey, can we just do one session to see if we're a good match? And sometimes that means, hey, are we a good match? And then other times that means I'm not sure if I'm ready to commit. to my own journey, to not nothing to do with the practitioner, to my own journey. And that is really scary. It's really, really scary to get into a place and to feel like, hey, I really, really, really I want to heal, I want something, but then there's this massive, intense resistance. And a lot of the time when it comes to resistance, you can tell very strongly that the blockage to the goal is usually usually resistance, and also the resistance usually equals the more resistance, I'm sorry, that you have usually equals the more necessary it is for you to reach that goal. And there's a difference between, I was telling another practitioner this, I was talking to a colleague this week about her practice, and she was shifting around her pricing structure, and it was a big deal for her. And we were talking about resistance to working with practitioners and resistance to healing and stuff like that. And there's a very big difference between resistance and then a hard no. But then at the same time, even though there's a huge difference, it's also a very nuanced difference, and we have to find that because we can have a lot of resistance to something, or we can have a really hard no, and it can hit us in a very similar way.
Right.
And so it's hard to discern, like, what is it? Is it resistance? Is it me resisting it because I'm supposed to do it? Or is that like a massive no? Is that like oh, I should not go there? And
Right.
a lot of the time people think, oh my God, resistance, and it like gets the best of them, and they're like, I can't do this. This is too much. And so it's going to take their process a little bit longer to reach their goal. Because at the end of the day, they can try all of the other things that they want to do. They could change their diet, they could this, they could that, but ultimately it's not getting at the core of the journey, right? So even if maybe it's not going to manifest as a rash or or back pain, it might manifest as something else. And not only will it necessarily manifest as something else, it also, because it's always going to try to get your attention in certain ways, because the goal isn't to like clear all of our physical ailments, right? The goal is to go through the journey and heal and look at what's truly there and get to know ourselves. It's the knowledge of self, which is connected to the Or in Sof, which is, the infinite light connected to godliness. And
Why do you say
is,
that? I don't see that connection. Not in
you
the
don't
way
see
that
that
you're saying
connection.
it. I
Well,
mean, I'm not getting it directly.
the way I see it is that once we're connected to ourselves fully, right, we're connected to that higher part of ourselves, and we know ourselves, then we have a higher capacity to be able to connect to that God consciousness stream. Whereas when we have all of these blockages, right, all of these belief systems, all of these structures in our way, then we are like, why is this happening to me? God, why are you doing this? You're punishing me. But when, like, the truth is that that's not the case. We're punishing ourselves. We're doing this to ourselves. We're blocking ourselves. And if we're blocking ourselves from receiving blessings from God, then we're blocked to the stream of consciousness that we so deeply want to connect to.
So when you say knowing yourself, you mean like knowing who you truly are underneath the personality and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, the personality is a part of you, who you are. It is a reflection of what's going on inside of you, and it is who you are. I believe that the personality is part of the soul, but the blockages to who you are more so with regard to it's more of like a process, because I wouldn't say that I 100% know myself, right? I don't say anybody 100% knows themselves, but when they learn and more, because it's Or in Sof, that it has this infinite, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And part of going deeper and deeper and deeper is with yourself, is getting more and more connected to God as well. So not only is it a healing journey, it's also a spiritual journey. And if anybody says, hey, no, that's not true, these are not the same thing, they absolutely are.
I don't think anybody here would say that.
No, not here, but anywhere else. Maybe, but that that to me, that's how I see it. And I think that that's super significant, because you can't have dinner without dessert, and the dessert always has to come afterwards. You can sometimes try to have your dessert first, but you're not going to get that protein intake that you need.
You mean you can't have dessert without dinner? You can
have dessert without dinner. You could have, yeah, exactly. You can't have dessert without dinner. You might try again, and you might want to get that quick fix, right? But you're just going to get a sugar rush. You're just going to be nutrient deficient, and you might even be full. and you're not going to have space to look at that. And that's what it is that that I try to help my clients and guide them to, is that like, hey, let's open this up. And I have had clients who've come to me in the past who were so not interested in looking deeper. They're like, just fix my problems, just fix the issue. Let's not go there. Let's not even do it. Just clear the blocks, you do your job, and I'll just sit here and you tell me what to do. And then you tell me what you cleared, and I want to know. And so I'm like, okay, let's do it. And they'll be like, it didn't work. Sorry. Didn't work. You didn't help me. Even after 2 sessions, 5 sessions, like, I'm sorry, you didn't help me. And then I had a client who came back to me recently and was like, I really want to work on this, but you can't let's not connect it to anything in my life. I'm like, you want to do it, but it is connected. And she came back to me, and actually a part of herself opened up. The resistance fell off of her. And she was able to look at a deeper part of herself, and she was like, wow, I see it now. I see what this is connected to. And her symptoms started clearing up.
So
but that was only with her willingness.
Do you find that in most cases when people, what is the core of what catalyzes the healing, in your opinion? I mean, obviously it's God and the soul, but in terms of the human process, is it seeing what the body's trying to show you? Is it?
I don't even think it's that. I think that there is a part of our souls that it constantly is like pushing us to experience something, to do something, to be somewhere, to interact. I remember I was one time at a party or an event, I'm sorry, and this woman that I didn't know, I didn't even know her, but I knew who she was, and I just blurted out like, hey, and I started talking to her, and it was because my soul was like forcing me to do it. I wouldn't have spoken to her or said hello to her, but there was something that needed to happen within the interaction, and it did. And it just happened. It just occurred. And sometimes we find, and it's not autopilot. It's literally our souls pushing it, and you'll feel it from like more of the solar plexus area, where you just kind of feel like pushed. When you're less up here and you're more down in the solar plexus area, that means that it's coming from a part of your soul, and it's kind of connecting you to do something. And a lot of the time we just find ourselves in these situations, or we're like, I can't believe that thing happened. That was crazy. And we would never have done anything like that in our lives, but it just occurred. And I think that push from the soul is, the soul always wants to heal. The soul always knows what the lesson to be learned in that lifetime is. The soul knows all of these things. And that's the job of the soul, to try to push us out of our comfort zone. And I think that in this generation, even more so than in previous generations, because in previous generations, the goal wasn't necessarily the same as now. Now we're in this unique space. We're at the finish line.
We're running out of time, right?
Yeah.
But I want to bring it down a little bit more to the technical, not technical, like what do you do necessarily, but so you're saying the soul knows and the soul is pushing, but that's always the case. That's the case for any moment that the soul's in the body. So what is it that catalyzes the healing? Is it seeing the problem? Does seeing heal?
It's a really good question.
Taking responsibility? Is it can somebody else see it? This is a question I've had for a very, very long time. Never got a really good answer. I don't know if anybody knows, but I mean, you're talking a lot about how we have to do our work, but there's no doubt that sometimes somebody can do a session for someone else at a distance and something will clear, even if it's something acute, whatever, that does happen sometimes. And so did somebody have to see it, but not the person who's holding it? Like, have you thought about this?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question. And the first thing that comes to mind is like the 5 love languages. Just like we all have these 5 love, have you heard of the 5 love languages?
Yeah,
so
but
just like we've
feel free to recap for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, so just like we've heard of the 5 love languages, which is physical touch, quality time, acts of service,
Gifts,
and one more, but I don't
remember. Words of love, touch, acts of service, quality time, and gifts, I think.
Yeah, okay, there we go, that's 5. So those are the love languages. So that makes me think of that initially, and I'm like, okay, well, just like we all have these different love languages. We always have a prominent one, and a secondary one, and then the third, and then like it goes down the list. We all have all of them. We all need all of them, but we all have the two most primary that we need. And the first one is obviously the most important. And just like we have those love languages, and we have those different ways of connecting to the world based off of our personality and our star signs and all the things, right? Then we have our unique ways of feeling and expressing and understanding what is going to help us feel that pivotal shift. And for some people, it is those words of affirmations. And for some people, it's like, it's actually seeing something. Some people are also like, just like the way we learn, some people are more auditory, some people are more visual, right? So just with all of those things combined, right? Because we all have these deep compilations, unique compilations of how we perceive the world and experience the world, we're also going to have the same thing when it comes to healing. And sometimes it's going to be somebody saying to you, hey, by the way, you are being a jerk. And then they have to be like, oh my God, you're right, I am. And I have to stop that. That's not okay. And then other times it's going to be through watching something. You're going to see something and watch a live stream with Shifra Khana, and you're going to be like, oh my God, what have I been doing my whole life? And other times you're going to be, some people are going to be, just sitting alone in a garden, on the beach, wherever it is, and meditating and being like, oh my God, that's what it is. And just have these downloads or these revelations. And it's always going to be different. And,
but then what happens? Go ahead. I don't want to stop you, but I want to know what happens in the body. Feel free to finish your thought. But then how does that connect to what happens in the body? Or how does clear on a technical level? Feel free to finish your thought first.
So, but that's the thing, is that it depends on where we're at. Well, what I wanted to say was that the same person can experience different revelations around these things within different contexts. So one time it could be that they see something and they're like, oh my God. And then another time, and they could have that aha moment or the light bulb or whatever it is. And then another time it could be that they are within the process with themselves, they're meditating and they have an aha moment. And it doesn't always need to come in an aha moment. Sometimes it could be somebody calling you out and saying, hey, you did this thing. You got to stop that. You can't do it. And sometimes it needs to happen. And then, yes, everyone's going to also experience it physically in their body too.
But you're describing spiritual. Sorry, the conversation is meaningful to me. You're describing physical. Sorry, you're describing emotional and spiritual growth. Those aha moments, and how do they happen? But what I don't understand, that you can see because it's on the surface. There's cause and effect, that visible cause and effect. But how does that work when a practitioner who's doing energy healing? Now we're talking about the energy field, which is not for most of us easy to see, and it can have any effect in any way, complicated, deep, shallow, not complicated. What is it about how does healing work? Let's say if you're working with a physical issue, what do you think is causing a relief of a physical issue when that happens? And when the client is, let's say, not having necessarily a huge aha. And also, likewise, when they are, like, how does it come into the physical or the financial or whatever? But let's look at physical, because that's closest to us. We live in this body.
I see what you're asking. I think that, let's say when I'm doing a session on somebody, and let's say I do see something about them that they can't see, they're not going to see it, right? Maybe it's past life, maybe it's just a blockage, maybe it's just an emotion, right? Maybe it's something from birth. And the emotion is going to connect to, their toenail fungus or whatever. All of a sudden, firstly, their soul will feel it. So not to go back to the soul thing, but really the soul will know, and like, thank God, give me that relief, right? But also on a subconscious level, the subconscious is the all-knowing of the body, all-knowing of what's going on, the deep structures, right? And so once these things are like, it's almost like when you're playing like Tetris, and the pieces go down and then like the line clears, and it's like so satisfying. So that's kind of like what it's like for the subconscious when these things are found, because it doesn't necessarily need to be on a conscious level that these things are found and addressed. Let's say somebody has an extremely bad backache, right? And their backache is like a massive compilation of different emotions, but the largest one is resentment. right? And so that resentment, once it's acknowledged just energetically within the context of a session by the practitioner, somebody who can see it, and then released, it's kind of like that, where like it's just satisfying, it clears. And even if on the client's end, they don't know it on a conscious level, they definitely know it on a subconscious level.
So
They
you
can
would say,
definitely
you're
feel a
saying
shift.
it is connected to witnessing something. It is connected to some part of the person being seen, whether by themselves or by their subconscious or by the practitioner or something.
I think it's a mixture of two things. I think it's a mixture of the witnessing by somebody, or the acknowledgement of it by somebody or something. And then I also think that it's the frequency.
Mm.
The
Okay, talk
frequency
about
that is
that.
held by the practitioner, yes. So there's different ways to look at it. So why would somebody take an herb for toenail fungus and that herb work for them to help clear away the toenail fungus, when somebody else can go to a emotion code or a healer, any kind of practitioner, right, and be like, hey, I've got this horrendous toenail fungus, like, let's work on that, and then it be released as well through energy work? Why are those two one and the same? And it's not necessarily because one works better than the other. They both work, and they both can work together and also separately. Depending on what the problem is, you have to use your discernment of what's right for me right now. But why? Because every physical thing holds a certain frequency. Every single thing, every physical thing, every non-physical thing, right? But every physical thing holds a certain frequency and a weight. And when you have something that you are releasing through a higher frequency, let's say the practitioner is holding a higher frequency, which is the job of the practitioner, to hold a higher frequency, so that the practitioner should be here, the client should be here, and they should be able to raise up to the practitioner's frequency within the context of the session so that they can heal, right?
Right.
Then they're able to release that issue through that higher frequency. And the same thing when somebody takes, ashwagandha for depression. Why is ashwagandha working for them versus, doing deep energy healing? It's because that ashwagandha is actually overriding, the frequency of the ashwagandha is overriding the frequency of their depression, which in turn cancels it out, because it does already have a higher frequency. It's coming from the earth, right? And so the two things coupled together, the being able to see it, right? And that's why if you're working with an herbalist, let's say an herbalist, you'll go to an herbalist and they'll tell you need this, right? They see the problem, they see what the issue is, and they understand the herb and why it's used for so many different reasons. So
Homeopathy
even if
too.
they're correct, homeopathy, Bach flower remedies, all of the things, essential oils, they're all there, right? They all
So it's
have these
vibrational.
frequencies.
It's vibrational and spiritual and emotional.
That's why I always say with healing, it's not only one thing, it's everything. It's all the things. And you can do all of the things and then like have these revelations, or you could do one thing and be like, this is my thing, that I connect to this more. And sometimes you got to do something you don't really connect to so much. But
at the end of the day, the goal is the question mark. At the end of the day, the goal is for the soul to be able to be completely, I mean, I said this in the beginning, but now I'm coming backwards to it, to be completely comfortable and flowing within the body. So the soul has to, so we'd have to say intrinsically that we're built and we go through life acquiring, we're born with, and we go through life acquiring different blockages that keep the soul from being comfortable and flowing in the body. And those could be emotional. This is still a question. Those could be emotional, energetic, spiritual, behavioral,
mental,
or mental, or it could even be a frequency that's inharmonious that we're not aware of. And all of, don't answer yet, because there's something I'm trying to feel into it. It's like right here in Chachmas. Is this related to the idea that the body is a hologram and it's taking in information from all different kinds of levels and sources and dimensions, and then forming itself in that every instant in that quantum, present reality? Is that clear, my question, or did I just
Kind
thread
of.
that.
The first thing that I thought of was that like the world is constantly being
Right,
created over
right,
and over, right? So that's
100%.
constantly happening within ourselves too, right?
Right.
And let's say if you look at like the energy centers, right, the spheroids, right, they're constantly trying to operate and work, right? And all of the spheroids need to work at the same time. They need to work properly. They need to work in relation to one another. They need to work correctly. They need to synchronize. And then they also need to flow. The energy needs to flow between all of the spheroids through all of the meridians and energy pathways in the body. And that's a lot of work. That's constantly the creation of this energy and the generation, like the generator of this energy constantly happening within ourselves. So like, how amazing are we? First of all, like, that's so cool. And second of all, like how much more so that it doesn't only, in Chinese medicine, they have like the elements fire, earth, wood, water, you know? And so that like how, like Lahabdil, we would say, like, we also have all of these elements. These elements aren't necessarily fire, earth, water, right? What are they? The elements are the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the energetic, right? They're all there. And we need to address them all.
Also fire, earth. Yeah, they're all there.
Yeah, but also
All there.
there, exactly. But
You know,
it's all a different way to look at it.
so I think a lot, or I use this analogy a lot of a jigsaw puzzle, and I use it in regard to the idea that we are all here with a purpose and we are not alone and we have to see the bigger picture. But as you're speaking, I'm still having a rising of something in consciousness that's not clear enough yet. But it seems like one of the things that I'm seeing is that we in this conversation is that we are each, like all parts of us are like jigsaw puzzles. Why do I like that analogy? Because it seems like the world is created, and on a fractal level, we're created, each of us as an individual world, we're created with the puzzle pieces like thrown across the floor. Some of them are upside down, some of them are piled on top of each other, some of them are, they should fit together, but they're on the other side of the room. So it seems like that I'm seeing this as a way, as I'm seeing this in response to what you're describing, that we have all of these pieces within us, whether they're those, the elements, the emotions, the physical, mental, spiritual, energetic, emotional. And so when we put the pieces together, so I'm thinking now, this is a question, but I'm thinking that when we put the pieces together, we could have a smaller section like, oh, that's a rose, in the jigsaw puzzle, that's a rose. We're not looking at the part that's a chimney, but when you put pieces together in a certain part, something will open, the soul will move in and flow, and then whatever has been, wherever the life force has not been able to flow, because our life force, which comes from source, should keep us eternally healthy and alive. So I'm just putting this picture together. So I want your response. So that when the piece in a little, maybe sometimes it's just two pieces have to connect, or one piece has to turn over instead of being upside down, and that would be a quick healing. But when you need a bigger healing, it's like there's another piece still, and then all of a sudden it comes together, and now the soul's flowing there, and that particular issue is now resolved. Does that make sense from your perspective?
Yeah. And I don't think that I don't think that there's always going to be the resolution of one major issue in a person's life that's gonna end it. Like they're done, right? No, because there's always more to work on, right?
Yeah, but I'm
So
saying in terms of the human experience, like the fact that sometimes things don't resolve and then they do resolve. Like, what is the
right, and
missing?
then
So then there should always be, presumably there'll always be a missing piece, although maybe for some of the more core issues, they stick around longer they propel the healing of less core
well, it's
issues.
also divine timing, right? So then you can have somebody who, let's say, that goes to a practitioner and she's been trying to heal this issue for 50 years, right? Or even just a year, right? They're like, I've been having this. Somebody reached out to me recently and they're like, I've been having this back pain. I went to so many healers and like I haven't experienced healing about
Yeah.
this thing. And then you have to ask, like, well, what's the spiritual journey that this person needs, or the spiritual lesson that this person needs to learn around this thing, right? Or the energetic lesson, or any kind of lesson. And then what is it, do they need to know about it consciously, right? Because a lot of the time people go to healers and the healers are like, yeah, like, don't worry about it, like, we'll just get the blocks for you. And, you know, I do that a lot in my practice. I don't really ever share with the client what I'm releasing unless they ask me, or unless I feel like they need to know. And then there's that nuanced difference is like, well, why wouldn't you tell me? Like every other practitioner, I have a lot of like colleagues, and a lot of my colleagues, you know, write down each emotion and they write a little description behind next to it or where it came from. And each one, it takes them like a little bit of a longer process to do those things. But the clients will, like, sometimes they'll, you know, get referred or they'll move on, or they'll, you know, they won't be able to work with their practitioner that week. They'll come to me and they'll be like, hey, you know, what's going on here? I want to know more. Like my other practitioner does it this way, and everyone's going to work differently. But the reason is that some people are going to feel called to sharing the information with the client. The client needs to know. In other cases, the client shouldn't know. Why? Because then they can also kind of form that attachment to whatever it is that is being released, and then kind of loop around it or obsess around it, and then like create like a bigger storm. So that being said, going back to what you initially asked, every person is going to experience their different pieces of whatever it is through their journey. So it's not only about the release of the energy, but it's also about the journey, the lesson, the things that they're going through, right? So if somebody has an issue for 10 years and they're like, oh God, why? Like, what is it? So they have to figure out what that part is. And it could be that they need to be more present with themselves. It could be that they need to shift something in their life. It could be that they have to go on this journey in order to reach another journey, in order to, and it's like a domino effect of all these different things. Of course, we can't always say. And that's part of why like all of our journeys are so unique in their process.
When you don't tell somebody because they might get attached to the story of it or whatever, then they're not seeing it, but it could work because their subconscious is seeing it. Like, is that,
well, it depends
in regard to what we were saying before?
What I'm releasing, right? Let's say I'm releasing a trapped emotion of betrayal, right? And I'm not necessarily checking for the source of the age, because it's the subconscious doesn't need to release it through the knowledge of it. It's just like, yeah, let's release this. And the client comes to me and is like, let's figure this out. What is like, what did you clear? And so I'll say, oh, I cleared a trapped emotion of betrayal. When did it come from? When did I feel betrayed? Who, where, what? And that's that energy of
Pulling it back in.
Right? And that pulls the energy of that thing. And it isn't necessarily that thing, but it pulls another energy back in of, you know, I need to hold on to this. And that is an aspect of control. And when we let go of the control and we allow things to flow, then some things are going to come to us and they're going to say, hey, we need to be seen. Let's look at this. And then other things are going to just need to be released.
So some of this is also being able to be willing to just let things happen. I think one of the big, I don't know the right word, challenges, opportunities, next edges, new matrix, part of a new matrix for us is being willing to just let things be good, to let things happen without so much work or any work. You know, that's the bitachon, which I've been talking about so much and thinking about aspect that maybe just saying, yes, okay, I'm ready, and really meaning it. You know, you can say, just take care of me and have all this volcano of unconscious stuff underneath you, or you could just have done a lot of work and you could be like, okay, I'm ready to be done doing work. I'll allow myself to be, you know, to receive now. And that's probably also two very different fields. I want you to speak to that. Hey, hang on. I want you to speak to that. Then I want to talk about past lives and how you've worked with that. But before I do, there are questions about working with you and the group situation that you had mentioned. So first answer the thing that I just said, then talk about your work and how people can get hold of you. And then let's talk about past lives.
Okay. But there was one other thing I really, really, really wanted to
mention. Go ahead.
And this is to do with when people are experiencing, gosh, I'm losing my train of thought about it because I had a lot of these things I was trying to remember what to say. So let me answer another question. It'll come back to me. What was the first question you asked me about?
Well, I was talking about receiving. I was talking about receiving, and it seemed like you were going to respond to that. So.
Got it. No, there was another thing that was popping in my head, but I'll talk about a little bit about my program that I'm starting. It's actually, I wouldn't call it a program. I wouldn't call it a class. It's not any of those things. It's actually a healing session, but it is in a group setting, and it's not therapy because I'm not a therapist. but it is a group healing, and I am launching it hopefully today. Very, very, very excited. It's going to be locally in Florida, in South Florida. So if you are in South Florida, or if you're going to be in South Florida, you absolutely can join. I'm going to have a couple of options for, this is only for women, unfortunately. I'm sorry, guys, but this is only for women, which mostly women are excited to do because they're really looking for that healing community. And a lot of the time, the other piece of it is that we also need somebody to witness, just like we need somebody to witness our healing to a certain degree, we also need the support of others. And not all the time do we either have the support or do we have the community support that we're looking for. And so what I'm curating is a group of women coming together on a weekly basis, either on a, one-off whenever they're, want to, or on a subscription-based system where they can come and do healing. We'll do a group energy healing. And then again, when there's a group setting, kind of like when you go to a concert, the energy of the room with all the people, it intensifies and the frequency gets really, really, really high. Why? Not because of the singer. The singer's able to manipulate it, but because of the actual people, the actual intensity of the energy. So the larger the group, the more higher the frequency can get.
Yeah.
And when everyone's on the same wavelength, it's like really intense. So that's part of it. It's going to be a group energy clearing with the emotion code and the body code. And while they're doing meditation, it's going to be awesome. And
so you're going to be feeling into it and checking what needs to be cleared and how many people have betrayal and clear that and how many people, whatever.
Well, I'm going to be clearing on a collective level. And then I will also potentially clear on an individual level depending on what comes up through my intuition. And there might be like people I call on to step up or whatever it is that's going to happen. I'm going to really feel it out because I think that each group is going to be so unique and different, and even if it's not the same group, but each actual session is going to be so individual. And the goal of it, and there's going to be EFT, and there's also going to be some vagal toning, somatic work, stuff like that. I'm not going to focus on the EFT and the somatic work so much. Really, the intense part of it is going to be the emotion code clearing and the group energy clearing, because that's really the point of it. The point is so that we can heal in a group setting and actually experience the shifts through working with a group and through having the support, and then having a WhatsApp community where people can actually talk about their experiences and share with each other and really have this like family of people to support them. And I think we're collectively quite ready for that kind of support.
No doubt.
In our lives.
You're going to do that online as well? Or right now it's just in person in South Florida for women?
So I have had a lot of requests for people to do that online as well. Like a lot of people have reached out to me and they're like, oh, please do this online. And so I am considering most likely doing something online. It's not going to obviously have the same effect or the same intense effect as the group setting because it's really physically everyone being together. But I will be providing some sort of like offshoot of this on Zoom for people who do want to participate if they're not in, I know what it's like. I used to live in the middle of Minnesota for 5 years. It was so hard for me to be completely isolated from the world. And so this is like a big deal, not only for me, but for a lot of people, especially since COVID and all that. So I was doing COVID for 5 years, but a lot of people are not only have they been doing COVID, but they've also been completely isolated. They're on their phones all day. They're not in community and they're not experiencing what they really need, which is like literally the support of others. And they really, really, really deeply want to build that for people and have a space where people can actually show up for each other.
I'm just going to throw out, it sounds amazing. I'm just going to throw out that it is possible in very deep ways to do that online. I'm sure it's not the same as in person. But
it's not going to be the same as in person, but it is going to be incredible because I know there are so many people who live in New York, who live in Boston, who live in wherever, and they really want this. They want a community. I mean, I have like communities on my WhatsApp groups that are communities of women that I connect to and that I speak with, and there are still communities, there are still connections, there are still people holding space for me, and really great friendships I've developed over WhatsApp and over online and whatever it is, and so. All the more intense it will be to be had in person. So I do urge people who are in South Florida to participate in person if they can. But if they are not, then I will probably most likely be doing something online as well at a different time, not at the same time for people who would like to participate in that.
So Rivkah's email is linked underneath this video. So you can reach out through the email either for private sessions if she has slots available, or for these group healing opportunities. It sounds amazing.
I'm really excited.
So you're moving fast. So what about past lives? How does that work? And what different kinds of shifts have you experienced? And in general, you personally, what kind of shifts have you experienced through healing? That's 3 questions.
I love the past life stuff. I geek out over it all the time. The first past life experience that I had was a practitioner that I had worked with. I was talking to her. I don't remember what the issue was, but she was like, "Oh, you had this X, Y, and Z dynamic in a past life with your family, and that's why this is happening." I was like, "Oh, interesting, cool, past life. I love that stuff." And I've tried in the past to like muscle test about my past lives, but I don't have any like base or knowledge of past lives. So I was like, "Oh, I don't know." I didn't know how past lives worked. And then I became friends with Ani, and Ani was like, "Oh yeah, I think there's past life stuff there." I'm like, "What do you mean by that? Like, let's talk about that." And we started talking about it, and every single thing that I had ever thought was actually real because she knows about it so much. And I was like, "Oh, that's the things that, oh." And then I started going deeper into the inner dynamics of what I had experienced in my most previous past life and in the one prior to that. And let me tell you, oh my God. And there were certain physical issues that I was experiencing that cleared up through looking at these past life things. And I was floored and these were issues that I thought that I just had, like, I had tried to work on them so many times. And I was like, that's also the part of it. It's like, you like try to work on things so much and until there's that one thing. And it's like the right puzzle piece. Right. And I had tried to work on it so many times with other practitioners, with colleagues, with my own sessions with myself, and nothing worked until I looked at that past life thing. And I was like, oh, that was the root of it. And I had no idea. And sometimes it's just expanding the knowledge base as well.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's just expanding the knowledge base. Like I have my own theory that I did pass like several past life regression sessions after my brother Michael passed away. And they got more intense. I either did 3 or 4, but I only remember 3 right now. The first one just seemed so vague. Like, I was almost sure it wasn't me. I was like this warrior on a beach, feeling sad. It was nighttime. It was a long time ago. And I got kind of a vague image that I had a son and little son, and he died. And maybe it was my fault and like this regret. Oh, okay, whatever. And the next one, I was like an Asian man, maybe middle-aged, lying on this cot in this bright room with 2 women on the sides of me. And I started to ascend up, and I experienced this incredible comfort, and they were crying, and I was like, sayonara. I didn't care at all, So, and then the third one I've written about. I just actually wrote up all of these in the book that I'm working on, but I didn't. The third one was the most intense. I might as well say, I was this it looked like Polynesian woman, a young woman. I saw myself walking toward this hut on this little path, and it was surrounded on both sides, but it was small. There was like a peak roof, and it had I think an 8-sided window in the roof, and then a door in front. And then there were these plants on the sides of the house, which at the time I didn't know, but then I saw them in the botanical gardens. It was bamboo. And I walked to the door, and I looked down, and there were windows on 2 sides, dirt floor, a low table on the left side, and there was this man sitting on the floor in front of the table. And he looked up at me, and he smiled. And I literally felt my heart jump out of my body toward him with the kind of love and joy that I didn't ever experience in physical life. I only, because I remember it, I could even imagine it. And okay, so that was a long detour there, but the point is, I never knew, and I still don't know, were those things real? Were they my memories? Were they someone else's memories? Is it a story that my subconscious made up? And my only conclusion is that it doesn't really matter, because somehow there's, life is full of metaphors anyway. Every experience we have is a metaphor. So I feel like, you might have a different opinion on it, but I'm skeptical about, I like to have I don't want to be attached to stories of past lives or even stories of this life. I think it's pretty easy to get attached because it's
Yeah.
cool. Oh, I was that, and that happened, and that's because, and I, it's hard to, sometimes it really feels not real, but I think if it does the job, you can't argue with whether it's effective or not. If it works, it works, whether it was a real thing or not a real thing. I learned a lot.
Past lives. Yeah.
Sorry?
Looking at past lives is like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you could be like experiencing wow changes and like be like, oh my God, this is like, I can't believe I knew that, right? Because you feel like you know it. It's like a memory. It's like the coolest thing. And on the other hand, it could be very detrimental to a person to learn about their previous lifetimes, because they're not in a place where they're able to accept that. I had a friend of mine tell me, I was talking to her about past lives, and she's like, no, I did that one time. Somebody told me about my past life. I wasn't ready to hear it. And that was not okay. And I was like, no, that makes total sense. Like, if somebody is not ready to hear something, or does not willing to hear something, or doesn't even want to, or sometimes they think they want to hear something, but really it's too much for them. They can't handle it. And like a lot of the stuff in previous lifetimes are pretty archaic and gruesome and gory and not glamorous at all. And they really could affect somebody's psyche, because they can hold that attachment, just like somebody can form an attachment to an emotion. They could also form an attachment to what they experienced in a previous lifetime, and that could also be really counterproductive, and we don't want that in the healing. I actually did recently past life regression on my brother. He asked me for it, and I did it in person, and I had him lay down on his couch, and he went into this pseudo hypnotic state, and he saw, I was shocked, because usually I could see things about people's past lives when I'm working on them, and I don't necessarily bring them up, or sometimes I do, depending on the importance or the relevance. He saw 7 past lives, and they were like rapid fire. Like, he saw all the things he was.
Wow.
I was shocked. I was like, whoa. Like, it was unbelievable, and he didn't like think it was such a big deal. He was like, yeah, whatever. And then something happened in his life when I was like, don't you see the connection between this and that past life? And he was like, oh, and he finally got it. And that is a huge base to be able to help clear from. So when you have that base, sometimes it is helpful to work with, so you can clear from, like, what's going
bigger
on,
space.
what needs to be released from the previous lifetime, of the dynamic and the soul agreements and all of those things. But yeah, it's definitely quite individual, and everyone has to do with what speaks to them and what feels correct for them. Because again, just like some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla. Not everything's for everyone.
I like vanilla with chocolate syrup. That's my favorite. Or chocolate chips.
Delicious. I'll take it all. Anything
so delicious. Or chocolate coating, that hard coating. Oh
yeah, that's the best. Exactly. You have the good ice cream there.
Oh, I never got that here. I used to get that in Crown Heights sometimes, driving away.
Gotta get some.
We're at the top of the hour, but there are a couple questions from Julie that seem, if you have another 5 minutes, you have another.
Yeah, I totally have another 5 minutes.
Okay, so the first question here is, what if you know when it came in? Oh, sorry, no, that wasn't the question. The question was, what happens when it's, no, maybe that is the question. What if you know when it came in or started, and you just keep working on it, but the symptom has not cleared, even if you want to help it and love it, but it's not willing to leave? Like, what is the story with symptoms that won't clear? That's perennial question.
Yeah, no, that's the hardest thing, because some people are like, again, like, I knew that the source of my, physical ailment was, I'll give you a really good example, because this is not the same physical ailment that I was able to clear through the past lives, but I had on my ring finger, which is also the ring finger that I have my wedding ring on. If you saw the finger, you wouldn't recognize it. It was hugely inflamed with crazy eczema. Wow. And I went to my practitioner, and I was like, I need it. Oh! And it was last year, after I came to Florida for Purim, and I was here for 2 weeks, and I had the most incredible time. I was like so happy. I was like, it was like, I'm home. And then we left, and that's when all of a sudden the eczema came. And I knew that it had to do with something about coming to Florida, something about leaving Florida, right? My practitioner was like, yeah, you left Florida. You got to go back to Minnesota. And of course you're upset, right? It was in February. And it was there and I was like, hey, and then I thought when summer came around, it would go away. I kept working on it, nothing. And then I finally did a session with another practitioner, another colleague, and he does something. He does something a little bit different. He does a different way of working. It's called the quantum matrix code, and he's a cool guy. And he was like, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of energy there," and I was like, "Oh really?" And I was like, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any shifts. Nothing happened. Um, but then I started realizing that maybe it was connected to something in my marriage.
Hmm.
And I started having these revelations thereafter. And you know what? It was. And once I worked through those things within the context of my marriage, and it's on my ring finger, right? All of a sudden, completely went away. I didn't have to take any supplements. I didn't have to use any creams, nothing. And
Why do
then
you
I
think
moved
it
to
happened?
Florida.
But why do you think it happened when you left Florida if it was about your marriage? This is such a mystery. Were those two things
Exactly.
connected?
Well, there's layers. It's always about layers. And and that's the thing, is that the layers aren't always perfectly coated, right? It's not like a perfectly coated slice of orange peel or
Mm.
whatever, right? It's it's sloppy. It's like a gross looking clunk of like rock, and at the core of the rock is the diamond, right? But it's not clean and beautiful. It's like, here's your problem, packaged cute. That's not what it is. It's just a bunch of, so you can have something on one side and it's like piled up real high, and then something on the other side that's like kind of down to there, close to the surface. And so everything is within its process. And yes, the reason why I was struggling with the eczema was because I couldn't stand where I lived, and having to come back there was also, somebody else tested it for me, and it was like, it's about your carpet. And I had carpet all over my apartment when I lived in Minnesota, and it was disgusting. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. I hate my carpet. It's disgusting, right? Who wants to have carpet like in the dining room? That's just nasty. And I have little kids too. And so it wasn't one of those things and all the other practitioners were wrong, right? It was
Right.
all of those things. And that's why that one guy told me, hey, you have so much energy there. And when I realized that there was so much energy there, I was like, oh, this is connected to, and there's always going to be the thing that's at the core of it, but still the other things needed to be released and looked at.
It's really interesting because it's like the idea from Hasidus of that the Middle Rebbe talks about of having of the rochav that you, in a tiny nutshell, there's a core light, there's a core something,
Yes.
but we can't get to it straight on. So we look at it from this, like the wise men or the blind men and the elephant, this way, this way, this way, this way. And then suddenly that's enough. And you got in. I'm just feeling, I don't know if this is your thing, but it could be like, I'm thinking it could be something of what would connect a yucky carpet and living in a place you don't want to be. And marriage could be a feeling of being trapped, or a feeling of not being fully alive, or a feeling of resistance. This is not my real life. It's not going the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
That would be the ultimate cause. When you put those pieces together, like the jigsaw puzzle, all of a sudden you see the picture, or your subconscious does. And then
it was me begging my husband, please take me out of here, take me out of this prison, right? And it was so many different parts of it, and they all are connected. Let's just say that they all are interconnected. That's why it's located in the same position, let's say the same space, but could be multiple reasons. So that's why somebody who's experiencing vertigo, or somebody who's experiencing hyperemesis, or whatever it is, right?
it's
These
the
are
second time
things.
in 2 days I heard that word, and it's the first time in my
Hyperemesis.
life I remember hyperemesis. Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
funny.
because it's a new phenomenon, right?
Is
But
it? My daughter's a
no, I'm
labor
just
and
joking. It's
delivery
not.
nurse.
But really, because like, why is because it's not only one reason. There could be like thousands of reasons. There could be 500 reasons. There could be 2 reasons, but it could take a lot of work to look at. And
And maybe
sometimes
you don't
it's
need all
just
the reasons. I'm sorry, I'm
no,
talking over. Maybe you just need
no,
enough to get into the whatever the core theme is that needs
exactly,
to shift, something that will allow your soul to move in your body, that say yes to
exactly.
life.
And by the way, the
Wow.
eczema on my finger, it didn't clear up right away. It took, I would say, a few weeks, but the swelling went. I was swollen. I couldn't get my ring off. It was so bad, and it took a few weeks, and it went down. And all of a sudden, oh, wait a second, it's gone. Oh, wait a second, it's totally clear. Look at that. Would you look at that? Hyperemesis is extreme nausea and vomiting throughout pregnancy. A lot of women struggle with that. So, were there
It's so
any other
fun. It's so
questions?
funny because my daughter was
Yeah,
talking to me about that just yesterday.
it's the hardest thing.
You have to know it.
Yeah, when you know it, you know it. It's
Wow.
really hard. It is.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay. Well, we might have to do this again. We're at an
I
hour
would
and
love
10
to.
minutes. So, thanks, Rivkah.
Thank you for having me. If anybody has more questions, obviously I'm going to be creating a WhatsApp community for my program. So if anybody wants to hop on and join it, to see what it is, to see what the pricing structure is going to look like, to see, you know, the location, and also to access the online community on it, feel free to reach out to me
just email.
via email.
So
Yeah.
Again, the email's on the email, maybe the email's linked under the video, but let me type it here for those who are on live. It's Rivkahroness, right?
Yeah, it's my name at Gmail.
At Gmail. Okay. Yeah, I might have to reach out to a session because this is bringing up a lot of interesting questions. Okay, Rivkah, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Shifra Khana.
Good to be with you all. See you next time. Take care.
Have a good